Hi! Have you ever started a drawing only to find that it just doesn't look quite right? And even sometimes it falls right off the page? Well, correct placement and proportion of your drawing in the early stages is really important to create an accurate representation and avoid poor composition. I'm Nada, and welcome to Coaching for Artists. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 ways to start your drawing off to make sure it looks great, stays on the page, and looks accurate. So, grab your cup of tea and your pencils and let's start drawing. Okay, welcome back. You should have your cup of tea and your equipment, which should look like this. So we've got just some pencils. These are just light pencils, HB and a H. For this exercise, we're going to be drawing this apple. There's different ways to transfer your apple to your page. Okay, so the first one would be a grid. Now you might have seen this before, where it's just evenly spaced grid, and you place it over the top of your subject and away you go. It's great for scaling up or down, but it's not very good for getting accurate proportions. It's just like a flat layer over the top of the of your subject. So what you want to try and do is get something that's a little bit more relatable to your subject, which I'm going to show you right now. Now the first and simplest way is to pop a square shape around the parameters of the subject. So you can see that we've got the topmost part of the apple, just grazing that line, the widest part here to the right, the widest part here to the left, which is the shadow, and then the lowest part, which is the bottom of that lovely fuzzy shadow. I'm going to roughly draw the square, or the rectangle it is, but I'm very lightly just drawing some parameters on the page, and this is where it's really important so that your drawing doesn't fall off the page. Okay, I'm going to make them a bit darker so that you can, okay, that's better. Alright, so I can see that the top part of the apple fits here, somewhere here. And then the widest part's here, so I need to connect here to here. So I might guess and put a curve like that, okay? Also work out that from this point on the apple, it goes down a bit and then curves back. But I don't really know where all of this information is. Unknown. I don't have any comparative points. We will persist and I'll show you how this is going to work. We've got the top of the apple there. This one sort of comes down kind of squarish and then somehow it joins up, and already I don't have a very good shape. If I was to look at this, I would say it's okay, but it's actually not very accurate. And the reason why it's not terrific is that I didn't really have enough information. There's so many more points that I need to mark on the apple before I can be confident to know that I've got the right proportion. So in that case, what I would do is something like this. What we've got is marks, lines that show comparative points. So right now we've got, here is a really important point that shows me where the beginning of the stalk starts. And again, as we said before, this is a really important point too that shows me how much distance from the end of the stalk to the top of the square. So I can still use the square. The square is really helpful, but I need all of these other points mapped out first. So what I need to do is put in the grid lines. How far down should I put this? Well, this is where we compare. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe a quarter, just less than a quarter down in your square, you would put a horizontal line. So 1, 2, 3, pretty rough, but that's okay. So a little bit less, and I'm going to do a horizontal line. Okay. And then from the bottom, I need to know where is the bottom of the apple. So again, it's about 1, that's about half. So I think it's the bottom quarter. And again, we're being quite flexible with our proportions. So I think, yeah, about there. So, and a nice horizontal line. And you can use a ruler if you're not comfortable drawing fairly straight lines. Now the next line would be perhaps the bottom of the shadow. And I would say that that's probably 1/3 of that quarter. Okay, so let me have a look on here. This is the bottom. 1, 2. So you can see how we're dividing. I'm pretty good, aren't I? You can see how we're comparing. We're comparing one point to another, and a point that we know. Are you having fun? Let's have some tea. Okay, don't forget, if you like these videos, subscribe and let me know what you want to draw next, or if you want me to show you how to do something specific. Always happy to help. All right, let's get back to it. So we're back here. Okay, so we've got a very important point that we've just learned here. Okay, what else do we need to know? We need to know the edge of the apple here. We don't know this yet on my drawing. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, maybe 1/3, a little bit more than 1/3 of, okay, I'm I'm not very good at maths anyway. So let's try a little bit less than 1/3. Let's have a look. So we got maybe 1, 2, 3. So down here, and the line goes all the way to the bottom. It's a bit wonky, but it'll do. And remember, we're just sketching, so it's fine to erase and get rid of lines that are wrong, and this is where you make all your mistakes. Cup of tea. Okay, what else do we need to know? I think we pretty much got it. Perhaps another line might be where the bottom of this shadow is here, which I haven't marked in. So where would you say that is? It's not halfway, it's a bit further south of halfway. Where else can we compare it to? Let me pull down a line. And I'll just put it there. And another line to the top of that lovely soft shadow. And you can see here that we've got some a change in the bottom of the apple. So perhaps we can use that as a comparative point. The top of the shadow is, I would say, almost halfway. So let's just go halfway. And then the bottom of the shadow is a little bit further south. So you can see very clearly there that my shadow is much further, too far south. It needed to be in here. Okay. Okay, so here's my top halfway line. And in the top, on the actual apple, it goes in quite a bit at sort of an angle. So I'm going to mark that. Maybe about there. Okay. And the other thing I've done now is I've noticed that this section of my drawing is wrong. So right here is a place where the apple almost touches the grid, but my apple doesn't do that. So again, and so I'm going to attempt to correct that with a bit of a curve. Okay, so now I've got a bit more information. I can make the bottom of the apple a bit more realistic in shape, and I can use my grid lines to map out the shape of the apple. So I'm watching the grid and I'm watching my drawing at the same time. This point here looks pretty good, so I'm going to keep that. It's actually a funny shaped apple. I don't like that. Rounding corners. You can see how I'm making lots of lines until I find one that I think looks the best, the most accurate. And I'm just erasing around the edges so that you can see. And I'm going to erase my mistake too. Okay, so already you can see that we've got a much better shape for the apple. This dark shadow we're going to draw now, so it starts right here, which happens to be in line with the bottom of our soft stalk shadow. So that's another good comparative point. And then it comes down to this second line and then curves back up. We don't have a reference point for that, so let's put one in. So comparatively it's about here. Which is okay. So I'm curling it around and going up. I've got a corner here. So I'm just grazing the bottom of this grid line and then I'm going up. And importantly, this line, although it's not an exact copy, it's very similar to the line of the shadow. So that would give you a guide. Just for, well, efficiency's sake, I'm going to just very loosely just put some graphite down there just so that you can see the edges of the shadow. and I would actually say that that goes a little bit bigger than that. Then we need to note where the soft shadow is. So there's this funny thing that happens here. So the dark shadow has only half strength because the angle of the lamp that I used is allowing light to come through on the corner there. So I've got to continue this shape around, but then because it's a single shadow, but then this is the double. That's why right here is a lot darker. So here is one shadow. All right, let's have a look. And I will tone that a bit light. Then we've got this point here, which we come down to this point here, which goes down to the bottom of the grid, up to that corner of our grid and back. So let's take a look. So from here, we go down to the bottom of the grid and we're grazing it. And then we're going up here to this corner. And remember, before I noticed that I'd made a mistake all here. So we get the eraser and we're just going to take that out. And then back up to this corner. And it's almost, you can see here, it's almost a straight line down there. So that's another good comparative point. I still think that this is a little bit high, but anyway, we'll just work with that. So, and then our shadow for the stalk comes out here. What we might do now, oh, I haven't put my stalk in. We can't do that. So again, this was a good mark. Came up here a bit, but I can see that it comes back this way. It's wider up there and then narrower there. And again, just observing here, this is the bottom corner of the apple, but we can see that there's that second light shadow, the second lighting point. So right here I'm talking about, okay. So we'll pop that one in right here. It's not on this corner, it's a little bit up. And it's just a little bit bigger. All right, so what I'm going to do, now is erase all my lines and then, zhuzh it a little bit, and I'll come back and show you what I've prepared earlier. So you go and make yourself a cup of tea and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Did you go and get a cuppa and have a little break? And while you did that, I went ahead and just tidied up the drawing. So let's have a little look. I've just erased the guidelines across the centre of the subject, and I've tidied up the shape until I'm quite happy with it. Here I've also just added in a couple of extra points that you could certainly include in a grid, or this is a complex square. You can see now that drawing, that shape is a much better representation of what's happening, across on the apple side of things. There's a lot more rendering that needs to be done, but in the meantime, this is a start. So just to summarise, your basic grid, if you want to, and that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You get lots of information from it, but it doesn't really show you where to place it on the page. It's just this never-ending boundary. So I think that for beginners, it's better to avoid that. You could keep it in mind, but just maybe do something a little bit more specific to your subject. So it doesn't matter what the shape is. Always put in the outside parameters of the shape, and then build up some more guidelines according to the other aspects of the various shapes within the shape. And so until you get enough information, and even to put in, like I've got these little tiny marks here, extra marks of places, marks that I didn't have any information for before. So build up as much information as you can, and always compare your points to each other to make sure that they're accurate. Well, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed learning the 3 methods: the basic square grid, the square outline, and then doing the more complex comparative points, which really gives you the most information that you need to transfer the shape of the object onto your page, and make sure that the drawing is well proportioned, is centered on your page or wherever you need it to be, and is a really good representation. So I hope you can practice using those techniques. Use 1 or 2, or however many you think that you need, but keeping that comparative reference in your mind always when you're putting marks down. That's how you get an accurate drawing. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. Show me your drawings, let me know how you're going, and if you would like to subscribe, please do, be my guest. And so until next time, so stay safe, my friends. God bless.